1 week season.
1 week season, fam. La Familia. Welcome back. It is your host, Mike Johnson, M. Johnson 86, as I am known in those DFS and Bestball streets. We're coming to you here, week 4 of Wake and Snake, drafting teams, talking shop, catching up on the week's events. I'm going to, without further ado, bring my esteemed co-host, Billy StatATL, up on screen. Billy, how we doing today?
Mike, good to connect with you again. Sadly, back-to-back second place finishes at Team Trivia. My wife and I played Team Trivia on Sunday nights. Didn't quite get the victory, but still got the $20 gift card to cover half of dinner.
There you go. Covered 1.33 drafters entries, or 10 in the $2, which we're about to have you draft. Do you want to pull your screen up?
Yeah, it's a great idea.
For the viewers who have been watching, you've been having to watch me finagle my way through these. This week, we're going to have Billy draft one and talk through it as we go through. So, yeah, we've got let me pull it up here. There we go. So, Billy, what?
We got the 7 spot.
Got the 7 spot. All right. Very good. Good. So, how active have you been? I can't see. What do you got? Like, this is the $2 again, the $2 drafters. We're filming a little bit later, and the 15 was taking a while to fill. So, Billy hopped on the $2. What number is this for you?
I've done 5 of the 15, and this is number 16 of the $2. So,
okay,
done a couple $2 ones. They, as you alluded to, they seem to fill a lot quicker. I've got a couple slow drafts going as well, and I do like those. I feel like it's a great way to make sure that like you're building your team properly, which you and I may have different opinions of what is properly, but I don't know. I feel like it's a lot more time, than the 30 seconds to kind of make a decision.
Yeah, you can stay on top of what you want to do. Oh, here we go. Moment of truth.
Yeah. So to me, I haven't been when I've been in this 7, 8, 9 spot. I haven't been taking Bijan or Breece Hall. I've been grabbing AJ Brown, Garrett Wilson, basically every one of these ones that I'm doing. I'm going to grab AJ Brown here.
Nice. I like that. Brown is interesting because he's like, I was doing some stuff, some research on a couple things I'm going to talk about Tuesday in my training session this week. And interesting thing on him is he kind of is like underappreciated. I feel like he has back-to-back top 5 wide receiver seasons, which is actually a lot more rare than you'd think. And I kind of go through the numbers this week on like top 5, top 12 seasons at the wide receiver position recently. But I like that because, I mean, he has the physical, the build that's different than a lot of these other top guys. And he has stayed healthy, which, knock on wood, because I'm going to have a lot of him this year. But yeah, I like that. I think after you get past those, CMC and those first 5 wide receivers, he's as like in this format as solid a pick as you're going to find.
Yeah, I think when I've kind of been in this 11 or 12 window, if he's available, I've been trying to go basically AJ Brown and Garrett Wilson. That's like my ideal back end turn. I've only gotten it once. Here we go. So back on the clock here for me, almost every one of these drafts, just kind of talking through, what we've talked about on previous and kind of what you've talked about in a lot of your pods. I've been going almost exclusively wide receiver off the start. Happy to go with Ayuk here. Just kind of stick on.
There you go. Yeah, he's another one that like the 49ers. I'm glad that you got the 7th spot here because I think we had I had the 1st spot 2 of the weeks and the 12th spot 1 of the weeks. So we're getting to talk about some of these guys that go more in the middle of these rounds. Yeah, I like the 49ers are super interesting with obviously they're a great offense, but then they drafted Pearsall, Ricky Pearsall in the first round. Ayuk was terrific last year.
Mm-hmm.
And then with his contract situation, and now I've heard rumors that like Debo might actually get traded. And then they'd give Ayuk the big deal. So that whole situation is pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think this early in the draft season, I think it's certainly worth diversifying between the two of them and just kind of seeing how the news plays out.
Right. Well, and like just from the standpoint of when you think of like what could change, Ayuk could like if Debo was gone, all of a sudden Ayuk would bump up into that like AJ Brown, Puka, Garrett Wilson, like he'd be right with that group, I think. Like in rankings and where his ADP would go.
Yeah. So I think we're still 5 or so slots away from me here. In an ideal world, I'm hoping that DJ Moore falls. I think that's unlikely, but that would be my ideal. I think that in a lot of not that I've done a ton, I've done about 20 drafts so far. I haven't been shy about grabbing a tight end a little earlier, third, fourth round, depending on who it is. Like I haven't hesitated to grab Sam Laporta in the third round. I think that's obviously not an option anymore. I think just kind of being fluid with this situation. I think that if it gets to me at 31 and Devonta Smith is on the board, I might go that route and try to grab Hurts in the fourth round because that's right around where his 8 AP is going to fall. And I think that's I feel like that gives me the likelihood of well, never mind. Now we got to be nimble here. I'm still not going HN. I'm not super high on Diggs personally. I feel like we've talked about Houston's offense most weeks on the show. I'm actually going to kind of scroll a little bit here. I think I'm going to grab a running back, and I'm higher on ETN than I think that you are, and that we've chatted about a little bit on previous pods. For me,
I actually my most recent update for my rankings, he moved up quite a bit. And okay. I was talking in the Discord with our subs, kind of broke down the reasoning for it. I'm not necessarily that high on him, like just in general, like from like but I mean, he was the RB2 last season. Mm-hmm. Tank Bigsby wasn't overly impressive. They didn't really add anyone, and it's basically like if he stays healthy, he's going to post like a pretty good number for you for the season. So it's not personally. I would try to I'm at the point where I'm okay taking him in the fourth if I don't like the receivers that are there. Mm-hmm. So that was earlier than I would want him, but him in a vacuum, I'm not like I am more open to. I was pretty low on him in the ranks early on. So
okay, well here, hit me with a hypothetical. Obviously, it couldn't happen in this draft, but if Devonta Smith had fallen, I know that you don't like going out of your way to create stacks. Mm-hmm. If it kind of falls to you where I could have taken Devonta Smith here instead of ETN and then come back with Hurts, is that something that you would do, or do you feel like that's kind of reaching for?
I'll let you decide who you're going to pick here, and then I'll talk about that. That's a good lead in.
I've kind of set a rule that I want to make sure that I'm having three wide receivers in my top 4 picks almost every time. Mm-hmm. I've been clicking Amari a lot, and he's not going to be there at 55. So I may reach up about 5 spots to grab him a little early. Just makes me a roster I'm a little more comfortable with now that the bye weeks are out. I feel like I'm obviously we couldn't weeks ago. You had no idea, but I'm trying not to double up my my first 3 or 4 round picks with 3 guys on the same bye week. That just feels suboptimal.
So a couple things. One, your question about Devontae. So like, I wouldn't have an issue with having Brown and Devontae. It would just, I wouldn't, especially in this format, I wouldn't take Devontae just because of that. I would be fine taking him. Like, who are the other receivers that were on the board there? It's hard for me to see. Metcalf,
Diggs,
Bell. So yeah, I mean, Metcalf and Devontae and Diggs are kind of the same to me. So I have no issue with that. I don't feel like you passed up on like someone who's like clearly superior. So I'm fine with that. I mean, and both Devontae and AJ Brown have had like top 15 seasons simultaneously. So it's not like only one of them can have a good season. So no issues with that. I'm kind of on the fence on the Hurts thing. And so the biggest reason why I would have taken a receiver where you took ETN is because I think you could have still got ETN or Jacobs, who I view very similarly, in the 4th round, and you would have got a better receiver in the 3rd round. So, a lot of the times, and I've been talking about this a little bit with the subs, is like, the rankings, because I do the rankings, but like once you get into a draft, you're a couple rounds in, like you got to be reading the room and seeing like, okay, not just who do I like the most at this point, but like who can I get at my next pick, and how does it all fit together? So, but I mean, either way, I mean, we saw what Amari dropped like a 50 burger last year. So I don't have any qualms having Amari Cooper on your roster.
Nice. All right, on the clock again here. For me, I'm leaning wide receiver. I have a hard time not taking Hollywood Brown over Xavier Worthy just because this is going to be the best QB that Browns had. So I feel like I'm willing to to go there with a little uncertainty around Rashee Rice. Like this, I feel like this could set up well for Hollywood.
Yeah, I mean, that the Chiefs receiver situation is one that you could argue is maybe the most important situation to get right, or for sure top like 3 or 5 situations that we don't really know, like and none of those guys, like, Worthy's super fast, but he's a little on the smaller side. He's a rookie. Brown, kind of very similar, but he's like he's a veteran. He's been around a few years. Skill-wise, size-wise, like similar player, but he's had some injury stuff. And then you got Rice, who like looked like the real deal, but like we have no idea what's going to happen with him. And then you have Kelsey in the mix, who, I mean, he had like a great run in the playoffs. Like he looked like himself, but also like lowest 8 out of his career last year. His production tailed off. So like, it's just a really interesting, dynamic. And however that all emerges is going to be really interesting and probably be a key to whatever happens. To whoever wins, there's probably a pretty good chance they're going to have a chief receiver.
Yeah, I think. So one Addison here. I wasn't in love with any of the running back options. for me, I find myself a little bit more drawn towards a little bit later. For me, I'm finding the same amount of value with Montgomery, Swift, Warren, Zach Moss, like that group, over Kenneth Walker, Aaron Jones. Like I'd rather take another, in my mind, higher end wide receiver. And I don't know. I live in Atlanta, as you know, by StatATL. Like it's hard for me to click Kyle Pitts after 4 seasons of what we've had, or 3 seasons of what we've had. Like I can't do it. For me, I'd much rather wait for Ferguson or Njoku, who I feel like have the same, if not higher ceiling, but they just feel like they have a better floor than what we've seen from Kyle Pitts for 3 seasons. So I just couldn't get there. Yeah. Have you been finding yourself taking Pitts in a lot of your drafts?
I mean, like, he's a guy I'll pick when he falls. I have a decent amount of like Kelsey or Laporta. If they fall to the end, to like the 3-4 turn, I'll take one of them. I have a lot of Andrews, a little bit of McBride at like the 4 or 5 turn. And then like my issue with Pitts, again, like so much of it comes down to cost. Is like I actually like him. I think he's gonna have a pretty good season, but like he's going before Kittle. He's going around the same point. Evan Ingram actually went way earlier, a little earlier than usual. I think Pitts has like a higher ADP. So like it's hard for me to click on Pitts just before Ingram and Kittle, because usually when I would take Pitts, it's like I can just get one of those guys in the next round. Or like, I mean, I've gotten like David Njoku, Jake Ferguson, like, in the 8th round. And like Ferguson, the Cowboys might lead the league in pass attempts this year, and Njoku was just like a monster to end last year as well. So he's kind of just, him and like Dalton Kincaid are like tight ends in that middle ground that I've been like, I like them. They're young, talented tight ends. I'm not clicking it very often.
Yep.
So we got 5 receivers and a running back.
Yeah, I'm not ready for a quarterback yet. Not in love with Kyler or Burrow. I think they'll be there next round. Now I'm going to go running back here. I'm going to grab Montgomery.
Nice. David Montgomery was on my 7th place team last year. Provided a nice, he just provided a nice, like, I got to go back and look at my numbers, but like I think in like the 17 weeks, I took his score, like 11 of them or something. Like just very, like you could rely on him, very reliable, which is in Bestball, everyone wants to focus on the spike weeks, which are obviously huge, but like a guy like him who, on a good offense, touches the ball a lot, can catch a couple passes, gets touchdowns, a lot of value, especially in this format, right? So yeah, I like that pick. Fits well with who do you have so far? ETN?
Yep.
Yeah, so so I like that. Just both guys who, as long as they're healthy, you can feel pretty confident about what they're going to put on they're going to give you.
Yeah, so for me here, kind of on the next kind of go around here, I'm looking and seeing 3rd, 4th, 5th spots here. Brolo, Conman, Shadow Beast. None of them have a quarterback. So I feel like if I want to take, to me, I think that there's I feel like you've got a lot more safety security with Burrow or Prescott versus some of these others. So basically, to me, the decision is if I don't take Prescott here, he's not. I don't think he's here at 103.
No, he won't be. Yeah,
he won't be.
This is pretty late for him. Actually, I've seen him go in like the 70s before.
Yeah. So to me, I think I'm either grabbing Njoku here, who I think Njoku could fall, but I think it's unlikely that Prescott falls. So I'm going to go grab Dak here. Kind of still sets me up to have that QB quotient number where we want it to potentially be in an optimal situation. Not going too early with a QB here. For me, ideally, I would love for Njoku to be available for me here at 103. Not sure it's going to happen. But to me, that just means if I'm not getting, he's kind of like the bottom of like that second tier of tight ends. I view him as a much more of a certainty than Bowers, who, a UGA guy. And I didn't love his landing spot in Vegas. Schultz is very likely to take a step backwards, not be as involved just with them bringing in Diggs. And Goddard, I think, is, likely to be the fourth option, behind Barkley and both receivers, as check downs. And so to me, I think that he's kind of the end of the tier. Hawkinson, depending on his injuries situation, could be he's a guy that I've been finding myself taking a lot of, depending on who I took as a first tight end. I'm finding myself taking a lot of him, feeling like it's worth the risk in the, the 10th or 11th round, or even later sometimes. Where, what do you kind of say about that as it relates to tight end?
Sorry, I checked out for 1 second. My wife texted me.
Yeah, no worries. I was asking
you were on the tiers, right? Is that where we're? Yeah. Oh, for sure. I think. Once you get, I think there's another tier after Njoku. You've got the Bowers, Goddard. Can you click back on tight end?
Yes, sir.
Bowers, Goddard, Schultz, Hawkinson. Like those four to me are kind of like. After that, there's like 25 guys that, there's like tiers within that kind of, but there's a lot of uncertainty. Even like Cole Kmet had some really nice games last year. He signed a big contract, but they brought in Gerald Everett. They've got all these other receivers now. There's a new quarterback. It's not Fields who was peppering him with targets. They got DeAndre Swift. So I don't know that we can expect the 3 2-touchdown games again this season from him. I think, it looks like Njoku just went. So
no interest in another quarterback at this point for a couple more rounds. Not running at any of these tight ends, I feel like I would be reaching. So to me, I'm deciding, do I want to go Cortland Sutton here, or do I feel like one of these is a tier above the rest on the running back? And I think I'm going to go Sutton, or Shaheed would be a guy that I've been taking some here. Happy to go Sutton, just a different bye week, diversify the wide receiver core there.
Yeah, and I think, he kind of fits best on a roster like this, I think, where you had, those 5 receivers early, because still his good games are going to help you. But I would expect with his skill set kind of, and Bo Nix likely being the starter for them, he's going to have some games 2 catches for 12 yards, which is fine.
Sure.
Which is fine on the right rosters. On this roster, I think that's totally fine. I think he fits well there, and I like that you took the player you liked there instead of feeling like you had to force a different position just because of the number you had on your roster at that point. We get 11, you got 11 more rounds. You're not going to leave with 2 running backs. You'll be all right.
Yeah, I think, in just being nimble and agile, I think when I'm looking at how this draft is going, I feel like there's it's unlikely that I'm taking a tight end here in the next round that I feel like is like, it's not a top tier guy. So for me, this is a roster I'm likely going to be taking 3 tight ends because they're likely to all be tier 3, tier 4 type guys in my mind of the tight end tiers. So that's kind of where I'm looking at it and saying, well, if there's no one I'm in love with, that's kind of at this ADP, I don't feel the need to kind of grab one here. I'd rather take more guys that I want. I feel like, I think I'm going to go Bowers here. Yeah, I'm okay with that. And we'll grab running backs in the next round. For me, there's, if I was picking here on my list of these guys in this range, I'm probably going Tajay Spears. And I'm not in love with Tajay Spears. Just, again, I don't want to make a big deal out of bye weeks, but he does have the same bye week as one of the 2 running backs I already have. And so I feel like on this roster, ETN is on this team. I'm banking on ETN having another really strong season, and the other running back spots are likely to be on committee on this team. Is kind of how I'm seeing this team kind of shape up, where the wide receivers are our strength.
Silos.
Say that again?
It's how you're seeing your running back silos.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So if you are a 1-week season subscriber, and thank you to those who are, and appreciative of those tuning in who are finding us on YouTube or on Twitter. I think it was a Tuesday pod that you had out maybe a week or 2 ago around the silos. Mm-hmm. I certainly don't want to undermine anything that Hilo has put out so far. I think that's one of the best episodes that we've got so far this season. For any of you subscribers, if you haven't tuned into it yet, it's a great 45-minute listen.
Yeah, it's there's like 2 or 3 things. Well, there's 3 things I talked about. I call it the holy trinity of drafters that I talk about in that Tuesday training session. And those are things that, like, last year when I really started like digging into this and diving into it, they're concepts that it just completely shifted how I look at my drafts and how I look at filling out my roster. And it just changed everything. And, basically kind of led into last year's, good performance across the board. And I think that, and you kind of alluded to it, once you see it, it's one of those things, once you see it, you can't unsee it. Mm-hmm. And I've also found that once I had an understanding of that for this contest, I started seeing opportunities for edges and just like different game theory opportunities in DraftKings and Underdog, because you can kind of work your way backwards with some stuff. And I'm going to dig into that over the next couple weeks as well. So
on the clock here, I think to me the decision is either am I grabbing TJ Hawkinson or am I grabbing somebody like Nick Chubb to give me a 3rd running back? I feel like in terms of order of importance, I need to start getting some running backs here. So I'm going to grab Chubb. I know the Browns have been an offense that we've talked about on stream a couple of times. They're an offense that I think that there's a lot of opportunity just based on their draft positions to kind of have that value. So I feel this early, you're seeing a lot of Ford and Chubb kind of going around this 120, 130 range. And I know you and I have talked offline about different approaches that we want to take with those pairs. To me, I'm not saying every draft, but I think at least half of them I've ended up taking one or the other of them. Mm-hmm. I just think 11th, 12th
round season.
Say that again.
Dante Foreman season.
Yeah. Well, he'll be there in the 17th or 18th round for us to
maybe later even. Yeah.
Maybe later.
No, but I mean, to that point, it's like I think that thought process though is critical. Just recognizing that you don't maybe know exactly how it's gonna how something's gonna play out, but just recognizing like the Browns offense, I think is gonna be better than people are giving it credit for. Right now, Amari Cooper, who you took in the 4th, but his ADP is like early 5th. That's the earliest. Like, it's him, and then it's Njoku in like the 8th. So, like, I mean, as far as ADPs and stuff, like the Browns offense is not being given a ton of respect. But they have an offensive-minded head coach. Their running game, his running game has always been good as a coordinator and a head coach. So it's just a good like blind bet to make. Like, hey, I think here we go.
I'm going to grab my second tight end here with Cole Kmet. We're going to kind of bet on Chicago's offense being a little better than people are giving it credit for with the rookie quarterback. And so, I'm through 12 rounds. Quarterback, 3 running backs, 6 wide receivers, 2 tight ends. I think from an overall standpoint, I'm okay with this. I'm probably need to take another 2 or 3 running backs in the next couple of rounds. And then kind of fill out from there. But we'll just kind of see what the board looks like when it gets to us. As we're doing this live, where are you? Obviously, you'll give a synopsis at the end. If you were drafting this, where would your focus be the next couple of rounds? And obviously, it's dependent on what's available to us.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of that point in the draft where I'm evaluating what I have, but then also I'm thinking ahead to what positions I like, or I have players that I really like later. So from that standpoint, I mean, like right now, you only have 1 quarterback, you only have 3 running backs. So I'm thinking about, are there quarterbacks, and there are, that I like that I can get in the 15th, 16th, 17th round. And there are for sure. Whereas running backs, I think that you're reaching the end here. Like, I think Ray Davis is like a nice bet that you could make.
Read my mind.
Just again, Buffalo backfield. Buffalo has been, they changed offensive coordinator midseason last year, started using the running back significantly more. James Cook was kind of the main beneficiary. He had some really good games. I was on him all those DFS weeks, but
another UGA guy.
Yeah, right. Dalvin's brother, who Dalvin allegedly is getting calls from a bunch of teams, according to Dalvin.
Allegedly. Did you watch him last year?
Yeah. But like the Bills, like they've told us with their actions, even last year, like they were giving Ty Johnson and these other guys a bunch of touches. So like they don't necessarily want to give. They haven't shown, and I am kind of high on James Cook, but like you're looking at bets that you can make here, and it's not. I feel like the mistake too many people make is needing to be right or wanting to like take stands and say like, I know this is going to happen. But like, we don't know what's going to happen with the Bills backfield. And you're trying to, if you're going to do 150 entries in this contest, there's going to be a bunch that are going to be dead. Like, it's just like, that's just going to be how it works. You're hoping, that when it comes down to like week 15 or 16, you've got like 3 or 4 that are live, that can they finish strong and get there. And you need a couple of those things that you get right on the right page, So basically like for this one, if Chubb's ACL if he comes back close to his old self, and if Davis has a chance to become the guy, you're in great shape.
Yeah. So to me, my debate here is if I'm taking another running back or if I want to grab Deshaun, just kind of making that same bet that we have. There's several teams with only one quarterback, and I think I'm higher on Deshaun than most. So I'm going to grab him here.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, between Dak and Deshaun, I don't need a third quarterback on this team. So I'm going to kind of shut down the quarterback there. Just not the same bye week, and we're just going to let it rip there.
I'm early enough in the process that I haven't looked too deeply at my exposures or my combinations, but I'm almost certain that Dak and Deshaun is my most common quarterback pairing.
Which is funny because I think I've done it at least 3 times out of the 20 drafts that I've done, and I know we haven't done that many together. So
yeah,
I think
and it works out perfectly with the QB quotient, which 1 week season subscribers will be familiar with what that means. It just works out. It just fits in ADP wise, especially when Dak falls like he did here. And they're just I think that their skill sets fit really well together too. With Dak, he's very, very good. If the Cowboys throw it the way they did, he's probably going to be a top 5 quarterback. I'm actually still trying to when draft season started, after the draft, he was one of my more head scratching. I don't understand why, but then his ADP's gone down. I figured once people started drafting, it would go up. So, I continue to be shocked that he's available into the 80s, late 80s and into the 90s in a lot of these drafts.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you thinking here? And this is where...
So to me, I think at some point I need another tight end. However, I have a few that between Chig, Isaiah Likely, I don't mind taking a shot on Darren Waller in the 19th or 20th round. I don't feel like I've got to reach for a tight end here. I feel like I need to take at least 1 or 2 more shots on a running back.
Well, I would take your tight end here.
Okay. I'm gonna go Likely just for the upside here.
So yes, and exactly, and I love it. And I love it because of exactly what you just said. So we saw last year Isaiah Likely the last 5 weeks of the season without Mark Andrews. From week 12 on, he was the tight end 5. He was tight end 3 after their week 13 bye week in points per game in the PPR. I love making that pick there because I think the running backs you can get, kind of what I was talking about before, the running backs on the board like Tracy and Dobbins aren't that much different really than guys that are going to be available 2-3 rounds. These are all dart throws. You're hoping things work out for them. None of these guys are locked in volume. You're hoping things work out. Whereas Likely, you have Bowers and Kmet, who I think were fine. That both fine picks where you took them. But you don't have Isaiah Likely has the potential to be the guy that gets this roster over the top, right? If something happens,
to things break their way for sure with Andrews.
Yeah, something happens to Andrews week 4 or 5, and Bowers and Kmet just have their pedestrian their median outcome seasons. Likely giving you 10 or 12 weeks as the Ravens starting tight end, that could be a huge swing for this roster.
It could. Agreed.
So whereas I don't think that a running back you would take at that pick would be that markedly different than a running back you can get over the next 3-4 rounds.
Yep. I agree with that assessment.
And he was on my roster last year, so there it is.
Now the secret comes out.
1,000 words to get to the truth, get to the real.
Yeah, so on the clock here, I think, just from a roster construction standpoint, I'm done with quarterback and tight end. So I think we're just kind of we're just seeing who we like best, for me personally, between running back and wide receiver, seeing if there's different breaks here. I would love to secure Foreman just because of the bet that I'm making with Chubb. I don't think that any of these guys above me are that materially different. So I'm going to reach on Foreman here just to make sure that I get him. Because I don't really think don't think I'm sacrificing too much by doing that.
And
then we'll.
Oh, go ahead. So,
I was going to say, yeah.
You go.
No, I insist. I think we're going to say the same thing.
So, and there was a little discussion with our subs this week about like rankings and stuff. And like my thing is like I barely like actually look at the rankings once I'm actually drafting. And I actually just like I sort by ADP, even though I make rankings, I do it by ADP because I know I can tell which guys I like, and I know who I like, but it's important to me to know when a guy is going to go, not necessarily where I have him. Like, can I get him at the next pick? That sort of thing.
Sure.
But also more importantly, so like Dante Foreman on this roster
is important.
He's got a lot of value. He's got a lot more value because he's locking up with, the Browns. They get a couple running backs out there most of the time. And he just has that, that reverse correlation with Chubb, really. If you like making that bet with Chubb, but also like you don't want the roster to be toast if the bet's wrong.
Yep.
That's a nice thing with drafters too. DraftKings as well with the 20 roster spots. You can do some things like that. It gives you more opportunities to, I guess, like buy insurance almost. Like underdog with only 18 roster spots, it's hard to.
Yeah, each pick has a little bit more significance.
Yeah, it's hard to sacrifice like that.
Yeah, so we're 2 away. I definitely want to get at least one more, probably 2 more running backs on this team, just because I feel like I'm happy with my core of wide receivers that I have currently. And so to me, I don't see a big difference between a Rashad Bateman as A. Jones versus some more of these dart throws that are going to be available. I have 3 guys started in this range of where I want to go. I haven't taken a lot of Keaton Mitchell. No overlap of a bye week. I'm gonna give that a go here. And then I think kind of from here out, I'm probably 1 or 2 wide receivers and 1 more running backs. Probably where I'm going to end up on this roster. I'll look to see, like I obviously not taking a 4th tight end. I feel like I've taken some shots on Justin Fields if he's there in like the 19th or 20th round. I don't know that this roster needs that. I feel like Prescott is the bet I'm making on the quarterback spot. Like I don't know that Fields offers that much more upside. I feel like Dak offers enough usable weeks where I just don't know what more I'm giving up with taking a 3rd quarterback. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I talked about that, and I'm going to dig into the quarterback position a little more this week too. But it's just, yeah, I think the quarterback position might be that's the place where I'm seeing other drafters make the most mistakes as I go through on drafters specifically, just seeing how they use their draft capital for it relative to how the position ends up playing out. And I've talked about some of these things the last couple weeks in the training sessions, but just the way the scoring actually works out. Yeah, I think, it's unlikely, what's the likelihood of a guy like being a game changer for your team? I think if you're relying on that guy at that point, your team's probably just hoping to cash anyways, and we're playing for first here, right?
Yep. So I'm going to take Hull here. I feel like he has a path to a lot of opportunity if things break his way. So a guy I don't mind grabbing here in the 18th round. Yeah, definitely want to go ahead.
That Colts offense is really, really interesting with the with Jonathan Taylor. Well, Zach Moss was terrific last year. Now he's out of town. Evan Hull before was like the clear next back before he got hurt. And they haven't really added anyone else. They had Trey Sermon, who, is consistently underwhelmed throughout his career. So yeah, we know the Indy. We've seen over the years what athletic dual threat quarterbacks do for running back production. So, Hull and Taylor's been beat up. He's got a lot of mileage from his days at Wisconsin.
And we saw with Taylor and with Moss, like there were weeks where both of them put up usable scores in the same week. So to me, it's a guy that I find myself taking more shots than the field. Like I feel like I've probably taken 30% Hull in the 18th, 19th round. He's a guy that I like making that bet on late. Just because, again, we're at this stage of the draft, I'm looking for, who can be the Puka Nacua of, 2023 at this stage of the draft. Who could really jump you to the top if things break their way.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. I like that. I like how you talked about that because he is one of the few guys at that point in the draft who, like, it's feasible he could be like what Puka, what Kyron were. Like, there's a lot of guys who maybe they're more likely to score more points, but they're not like there's not a scenario where they're like a stud.
In true 1 week season fashion, I had to take Greg Dortch here. It just felt like the guy I wanted to take. Yeah, I mean, I think he's number 2 wide receiver, probably the number 3 target in that offense on a team I expect to be trailing a lot. So again, I don't mind taking some shots on Dortch this late. I feel like there will be several usable weeks out of him where you'll get double-digit point scores out of him. Whether that makes your roster or not is a different discussion for that week. But obviously you can't figure out how the weeks are going to align between when guys score.
Yeah, it'll be interesting what like how that Arizona, the wide receiver room, they added Zay Jones now. I saw a thing like all their receivers that their current GM has added have been like 6'2", 6'3". And then you got Dortch, who's like tiny, and then they've shuttled out Rondale Moore and Marquise Brown, like the other smaller receivers. So Dortch is like the last short man standing. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But like also Zay and Wilson aren't like overly imposing competition.
I'm going to grab Noah Brown here. I feel like the upside that he offers is just, it's too high for the 20th round. He can play any of the 3 wide receiver positions if Dell or Diggs, any of them get hurt. He steps in and has shown the upside. I feel like it's too high for the 20th round. So just to recap this roster, we've got Dak and Deshaun Watson at QB, ETN, David Montgomery, Nick Chubb, Ray Davis, Dante Foreman, Keaton Mitchell, and Evan Hall at running back, A.J. Brown, Brandon Ayuk, Amari Cooper, Hollywood Brown, Jordan Addison, Cortland Sutton, Greg Dortch, and Noah Brown at wide receiver, and just rounding it out with Brock Bowers, Cole Kmet, and Isaiah Likely. I'm going to let you do your usual. Let's talk quarterback, running back. See, give me your thoughts on it. I'll tell you where I think it's, where we're making our bets and where we're hoping to be right.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I have that Dak Watson combo a lot just because of how they profile as players and where they keep falling to. No issues there. We'll see what happens, right?
We'll see what happens.
And talked a little bit about ETN. I dropped my thoughts on him for drafters, especially in the Discord this week for subscribers. So if you haven't already, just scroll back up. I think it was like Friday I was talking about him when I did my rankings update. And I think Montgomery fits this well. We talked about the Cleveland pairing. We talked about Buffalo. So, yeah, I mean, it's, can you get two decent scores every week from that group of running backs is,
That's the question.
Yeah. And I think that, that's, every roster is going to have a couple questions like that. And I think that the way this is built, as long as injuries don't completely derail it, which surviving injuries is like half of winning in Bestball. But yeah, I think it's set up in a way where running back isn't going to be what wins you the tournament. But you've set yourself up in a way where it shouldn't cost you the tournament either. So I think that from that standpoint, it's built nicely. And then, yeah, we talked about the tight end position, how I think Likely fills that out. I think that he fit perfect with what you had done prior to that. And then, yeah, obviously you took 5 receivers in the first 6 rounds. So, pretty strong group there.
Yeah, I would say your analysis is pretty spot on with mine. Maybe the question is, do I take another running back a little earlier between Montgomery and Chubb, which is where I went Prescott. Trying to think where we went next after that. I guess Cortland Sutton or Brock Bowers. Do we maybe instead of Cortland Sutton, if we're doing this again, maybe I take another running back at that 100th spot. Maybe give me a little bit more security. But overall, I don't mind it.
I like how you did it. I like the way you did it better. I like building. I like building to a strength. Like I like that you added to your strength at wide receiver there. Yeah, I had no issues with the Sutton pick. I kind of would have liked, if I had one thing that I would say differently, is when you took Dortch and Brown at the end. Couple things. I think can you click off that so I can see your board again?
I gotcha. Oh, let me make it a little bigger. Maybe not.
Yeah, so it's good. So when you took Dortch, and I think he was the next receiver taken, if I'm reading this right.
You would have liked Elijah Moore because I'm betting.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I thought about that.
And not as much. I mean, the Watson is fine. but it's more so because you had Amari. And so that contingent value and like thinking about it from like the silo aspect, those two Cleveland wide receivers being able to work off each other. Like if Amari doesn't give you a usable week in a given week, there's a greater likelihood that Elijah did.
Sure.
The Brown pick, I'm okay with. Trying to look. Did Jalen Hyatt even get drafted?
No.
Yeah. So him, Bo Melton, there's some other guys that I think could just win a role. But I mean, we've talked about Noah Brown before. I think we've seen him do it. He's on a really good offense. So yeah, I think at the end of the drafts, getting guys who you think could be on really good offenses is key. Which Dortch and Brown both fit that profile. I think more would have been my one thing I would have changed though.
Okay. Yeah, some I like it just because of I like the more especially. I think that's in hindsight makes a lot of sense. Just because this roster, I don't want to say it's dead, but it's severely hamstringed if Cleveland's offense isn't good. Between making the bets on both running backs as well as Amari as well as Deshaun. Like if Cleveland's offense doesn't overachieve, this team is likely dead for first anyway. So yeah. I agree. I think Moore there would have been a better pick over Dortch. I think that's a good call out. Yeah,
and with Dortch, I think he's the type of player profile that even if he does find his way on the field and stuff, I don't know that his best value is on a team like this where you have 5 receivers in your first 6 picks. Because even his good weeks, in DFS, Dortch had a good week. He might have had 14 points. Well, that he might not have been in your lineup anyways because you have so many studs. So I kind of like him more on teams where maybe I took an early tight end and I got Bijan in the first round and a quarterback fell to me in the 6th. So if I came out with just 3 receivers in the first 6 rounds, then Dortch I think is a guy that I target more often. So yeah. But yeah, I think good stuff. I enjoyed being able to sit back and kind of analyze more, and talk through your stuff and just seeing how your brain's working through these things is cool for me too. So, yeah.
I think, man. I think for me, I've done a lot. I haven't done a lot. I've done a lot more of the $2 drafts just because I feel like it's such a low investment that I just kind of want to, I feel like, and certainly not to your level, but I feel like I'm getting a good grasp of where everybody's being drafted.
For sure.
Where when you're doing these fast drafts, in my mind, totally different animal compared to the slow drafts, 30 seconds versus 8 hours. It's really, it's easy to spend 10 minutes and just talk through, make sense of your prospective pick. Where when you're only on the clock for 20 seconds, it's got to be thinking fast.
Well, Billy, thanks for joining us again this week. It was great watching you draft. 1 week season fam, check us out. Bestball Plus 2024. We will see you in Discord. We will see you in Twitter. We will see you next week. Bye-bye.